Right. I've got about half an hour, I think, to show you some of the highlights of my trip to Ciamanda in Kenya in May this year. It was my fourth trip since 2009, and I've seen lots and lots of changes since that time. This is actually, Warner will have been there, to Thika. You've heard the book, I expect, The Flame Trees of Thika. Locally they say Tika, but you confuse that with an Indian meal, so we say Thika. And this is where we stop for lunch, and this is the view. So it's pretty wonderful. I've never seen it in so much flood, though. I've always been in February before. This year I went in May, and it's the rainy season, and so there was loads and loads of water coming through that waterfall. Absolutely beautiful. Ciamanda always challenges me. It's got a very special place in my heart, but I've also come to know that it has a very special place in God's heart. Ciamanda is a village, 2 or 3 hours, I'm not sure how much, out of Nairobi, because it always takes us about 5 hours because of the traffic. And it's quite rural. We go to a school and a church. It's part of a link. We're linked with Butsbury Junior School. Butsbury Junior School and Christchurch go out to Ciamanda, but there's many, many other schools in the Chelmsford Diocese involved in this project. So we went out this time with there were 34 of us going to all different schools. Ciamanda is a community where they help one another, they look out for one another, and they are building God's church quite literally. Literally in terms of building amazing building projects, considering their resources, and they're also working very hard to build the Christian community. What I have admired by the Christians I've met in Ciamanda is whether or not they can envisage where the resources will come from. They move ahead with the vision that they believe God has given them. They plan how the vision can be accomplished. And as God blesses them, they rejoice every step of the way. As a church, we've been able to offer Ciamanda some financial support. Not actually a great deal in the scheme of things. They have never asked us for anything except for our prayers. But we have given them financial support because we recognise that as our brothers and sisters in Christ, Ciamanda is a community in need. What has been more astonishing for me is the love and support, is not just the love and support of individuals here at Christchurch, but also from my firm Kennedy's. And I can't tell the story of Ciamanda without mentioning the generosity of my firm. I don't pretend to know the answer to the reason why Kennedy's have been so generous, why they have constantly supported a village that they know nothing about, and I ask God very often when someone stops by my desk, as they did this week, and said, I want to support a child in Ciamanda through senior school. I'm supposed to be working and people are stopping at my desk all the time. When are you having another event to raise money for Ciamanda? It amazes me, but I just have to stand back and let God do what he wants to do at the moment. But I know he is blessing Ciamanda and he is using whatever means are available to him, including my firm, to accomplish what he wants to do. So this is a far bigger story than it's possible to convey in any one presentation or even in a long conversation. But what I have learned is that God will have his way and he will pour out his Spirit on whom he will. Now, I've got to learn how to do this. Is it moving? No? It's gone back.
So if you click,
Just keep clicking that one. Okay.
That will move it forward.
Right, okay. Great. Here we are. So, Sunday morning in Ciamanda. It was Education Sunday, and we started, that's Reverend Maxwell, who will be coming here in September, and that's Marjorie, who is head teacher of the senior school in Ciamanda. And we were taken to the senior school where the procession was waiting to start. There were about 400 people in the procession. Let me just show you a little bit more of the procession. There we are. That's Juliet Duff, the teacher from Butsbury at the back there. We processed all the way through Ciamanda village to the church. And there we are, arriving at the church grounds where Maxwell said a few words, and then we all went into the church. The church was absolutely heaving. There is a balcony, that was full. They were bringing benches in along the sides. Education Sunday in Kenya is very different from here. There isn't just a sermon on education. All the local schools are invited in, all the parents are invited in, and there is prize giving. And it's an absolutely amazing event. And I was called upon to preach. And I was also called upon, sorry this is a bit of a fuzzy picture, someone else used my camera, but I was glad that they got something. I'm there giving the prizes. Pupils and teachers got prizes. I was giving each teacher in the community a vacuum flask, and these are quite prized in Kenya. You make your tea and then you put it in a flask on the table. It has the sugar and the milk already in there, so most of us wouldn't enjoy it. That's what I was doing there. And if you just notice, I think you can just see above, there's the white lights, the strip lights at the in the roof. They're the light. That's the lighting that Christchurch paid for. There's St Francis Church on a quieter day, and the little round building there is built above the water tower, or the water tank. Christchurch donated some money to have that water tank built, and then the church built this little meeting room on the top, and Warner formally opened it, and there's a little plaque on the church, opened by the Reverend Warner Pigeon. He did that in September last year. And that's inside the meeting room, which it's a very spacious room. And if you notice the chairs, now Christchurch sent out some money to Mothers Union. Mothers Union is very, very active in Kenya. Mothers Union members all wear a uniform. And we sent this money out to Mothers Union. We thought it was going to be used for one purpose, but actually what they did was to buy all these chairs, and they hire them out for 10 Kenyan shillings a day, which is actually 10p, about 10p. Lots of these chairs, they're very good quality, and when they're hired out, they make money for Mothers Union and help the poorer members of Mothers Union. I went to the home of Reverend Maxwell and his wife Pauline, so that's in their home, and their daughters Joy and Ivy. They have a television, they have electricity. They've had electricity about 2 years in their home. That's on the Monday morning. The school committee were waiting to meet with us. They're a wonderful committee. They do look after the funds very well, which is what we're always concerned about. Things that we send money out for do happen, and that's very important when you're sending money to Africa. The lady in the centre is, some of you might recognise as Lucy, the head teacher of the primary school. Oh, sorry, I've missed one. Never mind. That's going back a bit to 2012. This picture was brought over by the teachers when they came here. And it's a water tank under construction. And this water tank was largely paid for by my firm, Kennedy's. We did have a donation of about £450 from the Rotary Club in Billericay, and also some funds were raised by people from Christchurch. But the whole village came out apparently to see this water tank being built at the school. It caused quite a sensation. And that's the water tank completed. It goes 15 feet under the ground. It supplies the school with all the water that they need. The children used to have to walk 1.25 miles to the river every day. They'd come back tired, they'd fall asleep in class, the water was polluted, and so now all that problem has been resolved by this new water tank, which on my first visit, the teacher, Mary, who visited England, she said to me, a water tank would just be a dream. It was beyond their wildest expectations that they could have a water tank. Oh, it's flipping. How do I go backwards, Warner? I don't want to do anything wrong. Okay. That's it. Next one. That's it. Thank you. This was something new. Because they have water, the fisheries, Kenyan fisheries, want to encourage fish ponds because not much fish is eaten in Kenya. And someone else was supposed to have a fish pond, but their water supply wasn't good enough. And so the Kenyan fisheries realised that Ciamanda Primary School had water and said, would you like it? And so they've dug out the fish pond, they've stocked it, they've put the liner in, they've done everything, they've got people coming to show them how to look after the pond. And the school will benefit because when they sell the fish, the school will get the money. As usual, they don't waste very much. Lucy said that sweet potato is growing all the way around the edge of the fish pond, so that's supplying food for the school as well. This was assembly on our first morning. You always have to step forward and say a few words, and I had in my hand a T-shirt. Somebody I met on Billericay Station has a boyfriend who makes up these T-shirts, and I asked him to make ACK, stands for Anglican Church of Kenya. And I took out 15 of those with me. They're for their sports teams. And I said, I now feel that I'm a pupil, and I held up a T-shirt, and it caused a roar of laughter. They'd never seen anything like it. No other sports team will have anything like that in the area. That was just a bit of fun. In the classroom, classrooms are very dark. They have no electricity. In the rainy season, it is practically impossible to teach, so they just have to gather the children in the classrooms and sing, really. So really, electricity is the next thing that this school could do with. I don't know if anyone has spotted those sweatshirts at the front. I don't think Stuart's here today. Oh, yes, he is. Do you recognise them, Stuart? Yeah. Stuart had, I don't know how many sweatshirts, but he was given them. They had to go out of the country, and it just so happened, because the design, it's from South East Essex Tech or something, and they changed the design of these, the logo, so they could no longer be sold in this country. They had to go out of the country, and just so happened that two of the teachers from Kenya were here, and we packed them up with bags stuffed with T-shirts. And now when you look around the school, it's a shame in one way because you can identify the orphan children because that's who's been given them. But in another way, they're really good quality sweatshirts for the children to have. And lots of them have got them. So I understand the other batch of them are in Mozambique or somewhere like that. Is that right? Juliet, the teacher from Butsbury, with Bessie. Bessie came over here. I don't know if you remember her. They're doing a project between the schools on myths and fables. The children exchange stories and they write letters to one another. And the British Council, who sponsor this link, they need evidence all the time of the work that's being done between the schools. If you don't produce the evidence, you don't get funding for the next trip. So Juliet has to do quite a lot of work with the teachers when she's out there and also back here. And this was a planning session that they were having while we were out there. This is the nursery class, the children all lying on the floor. There's 46 of them, under 5 years old. They were having their afternoon nap. Now, what is so great about this picture to me is that when I went into that classroom in 2009, there were filthy rags hanging from the ceiling, and it had the times tables and letters and things like that. They must have been hanging there for years and years. But since the teachers from Ciamanda have been to England, they've seen how we do things differently in schools, and there's colour and educational items on the walls, and they're beginning to do it themselves. So those children are inspired by what they see, and it's a very colourful, happy environment. That's much harder for you to see, but there's a little Christian corner there, and there's a poster which has the Lord's Prayer on it. And the nursery class now have an improved play area. They've got swings on the other side of that fence. This wood was being grown on their land, on the school land, and they were going to sell it. When we first went out there, that was the plan. They would have to sell it to try and pay for the school bills. Now they can afford to keep it, managed to put this fencing up, this nice fencing, and so the younger children are in a completely separate and safe play area, away from all the big children. I don't think Jo Fisher's here today, is she? Oh yes, Jo, your umbrellas. Jo gave me a dozen umbrellas to give to the teachers, and yeah, they loved them. Thank you. Well, yes, we did have some showers of rain, but they love them because they're so small and pack them up. Now, this is something very new. This is the feeding programme. Now, there's a feeding programme that's been started at Ciamanda, which has been funded largely again by Kennedy's. We had a quiz night before I went to Kenya. We raised £4,300. On top of that, I had a donation, gift-aided, of £1,300. On top of that, I had another cheque for about £1,200, also gift-aided. People are extremely generous, I can't tell you, but people from this church have also put towards this feeding programme very generously. This is a new wood store and shelter where the food is cooked. And this lady is the new cook. There's 2 cooks. We've met Alice before, but Joy has got a job now, and she's very pleased with her new job because of the feeding programme. She has been employed. So that's something that's really great. And children on the feeding programme are given a ticket for lunch. Now, these children will be orphaned or destitute children. When we met with the carers, grandmothers, other relatives last year, they told us they can feed their orphan grandchildren maybe twice a week. I don't know if you can imagine that, your children being fed twice a week, if they're lucky. So this is what inspired us to come back and talk about a feeding programme. And the school have instituted it. It's in place. So there's a list. That's what the teacher there is holding. She's holding the list of children who are entitled to a free meal. But the teachers are also, they work very much on spec. Juliet was walking through the playground area with a teacher, and she looked at this child who was standing there with a closed food box, and she said, "Let me see in your box." And the child took the lid off, and it was green mould from the top to the bottom. It was just rotten. And some of the mothers, they're not very highly educated, they will put hot food in a pot, and it will just have the lid on, and in those temperatures it just goes mouldy. And the child will bring it to school, and then if she hasn't eaten it all, she'll take it back the next day, and the mother won't look in the pot again until she's got some more food. So this teacher looked at that child. They said they know. They can look at a child and they can know if they're hungry. They can know if they haven't been fed. And she just said, "Wash your pot out and go and join the feeding queue." Her name wasn't on it, but she was told to go and join it. There should be 120, between 112 and 120 should be on the feeding programme at any one time. But on the Tuesday I was there, 135 children were fed. Is this moving on? Yes. That's the queue for lunch. And it's a hot meal. There's nutritious beans and vegetables in that meal. And they carry it really carefully. It seems like quite a large meal, but you have to bear in mind they don't eat sweet stuff. This is all they will have, and that will be the only meal that child will have that day. And they will eat it all up. That little girl in the middle is a special little girl to me. Her name's Jacqueline. I saw her in 2009 in her absolutely shocking home. She's one of 6 children. She was covered in ringworm. It's taken several years to get rid of the ringworm, but she's finally free of it. She also had jigger in her feet, which is where a weevil gets under the toenails, turns the toenail back, gets infected. And then eventually I did see an older lady where she could barely walk because the jigger was so bad. And she just said to me, "God hasn't healed me," which just breaks your heart. But Jacqueline, thankfully, is well. And see that little boy looking at her. They know that, although I can't pay too much attention to her, but they do know that she's important to me. And the great thing is that since 2009, the school's results have gone up every year. If you look at the far column, 2009, the school's results went right down to 162, and they've gone up every year since. This year they're 237. The There's lots of changes, and I won't go through all these now, but there's lots of changes we've seen since 2009 in Ciamanda. Teachers tell me they want to stay at the school. Teachers would apply for a job at this school now because it's an up-and-coming school. The children are healthier, and the pupils and the teachers say their school is famous. I've got a letter here, a thank you letter from one of the pupils, and try to find the bit. On behalf of Ciamanda pupils, teachers and parents, we're very happy and proud of the relationship we have with you. You have made our school very famous in our county. I'll leave these. I've got some other letters which you can have a look at afterwards if you'd like to. Christchurch has sponsored, through the Mission Support Group, we've sent out money for children who are bright, but they come from very poor families, and they could never go to senior school. These girls would probably have to work on the land if they could get any work. And so we've sponsored two. I've got letters from them as well, and you'll be able to read them afterwards. But they are very grateful for their places. They get their uniform and they get food every day. This is where one of them lives. I went on a pastoral visit with Reverend Maxwell to the home. We wanted to make sure that the father was happy that his child was going to the senior school. If you haven't got the father on board, then the child will not be allowed to continue. And there he is on the left-hand side, the father. The man in the middle is the head teacher of St Paul's Magacha, which is another school in Ciamanda, which is actually in the same condition that Ciamanda was in when we first went there. No water, no feeding programme, no electricity, and so on. This father came, he was sent for, he came in from the fields because we had got there, we'd arrived, and we had to go partly by car, then we had to get out and walk down a steep hill into the valley. When we got to the house, we had to walk across a treacherous path to get round to the back of the house, and we arrived safely and sat on this seat. And he was sent for. We waited for him for a little while, and he came in and he was very nervous. And I saw this man transformed. Reverend Maxwell spoke to him and he said, "Tell me what your problems are." And this man began to talk. And Maxwell said to him, "This is a community where we help one another. When you are in trouble, you must come to me and we will talk and we will help you." And this man changed. He was smiling. He was happy to have photographs taken. We can see he's smiling there. And that was because he was shown some amazing, skillful love from Maxwell. I was so impressed at his pastoral gifts. Moving on. Went on another pastoral visit to pray for Sylvia. Her family, I said, "How old is she?" They said, 80 or 90. And Sylvia still walks to church. It's a long way to church. And she's working. She was there threshing. You can see it looks like hay, but it's actually dried beans. And she gets the beans out and she puts them in that little raffia basket. So that was Sylvia. We prayed for her. And then we moved just across to the other side of the house. And we met her co-wife, who is, I said, "How old is she?" And they said she's 80 or 90. So she wasn't quite so well, though, and so we prayed for her as well. I asked Maxwell, does this happen much in Kenya now, co-wives? And he said no, only in that generation. So I didn't meet the husband, but perhaps he's died, I don't know. And there is St Mary Magdalene Church. I also went on the same day as I did those pastoral visits to... This was St Mary Magdalene Church in February 2011. Now, if ever you want to feel challenged by the state of this church. They were asked by the local authority to move the church back 10 feet from the road. Now, can you imagine taking all this down and moving it back 10 feet from the road? What a challenge. And the church council thought and prayed about this. They could have knocked the church down and moved it back. But they felt if they did that, they would lose the congregation. And they wanted to keep a worship space. This is their worship space. And they were worshipping in there Sunday after Sunday when I went in 2011. That was what it was like that's actually, so it is 2011, So that's what it was like on the outside. They had moved it back. They had problems with the roof because they decided to enlarge the church when they moved it. And then they realised they couldn't have a wooden and tin roof. They would have to have steels. So it was much, much more expensive, and it set them back quite a bit. But there it was in 2013. The roof is on. They're decorating it. They say the consecration is on the 13th of October this year. Now, are you laughing at the ladders? Health and safety, no. But they are zipping along with getting this church ready. I just can't tell you really the faithfulness of these people. It's absolutely incredible. And that's the committee. There's Marjorie in the black and the blue dress there. She's the head teacher of the senior school. She's a chair lady of the church committee. Very gentle lady, but very dynamic. And the man on the right, he's chairman of the building committee. And the others is Maxwell in the middle. The others are members of the church council. But these are the people who have driven this forward and worked so hard to get the church rebuilt. Now, the exciting bit is that there are 3 windows in that church which are going to be called Christ Church windows, because we donated £450. And that is how much those windows cost. Things are surprisingly expensive in Kenya. I learned from Maxwell, I sent him a text yesterday, asked him to remind me, the vicar here, at Ciamanda, how much did that church cost to rebuild? And he said it was 5 million Kenyan shillings. They thought it was going to cost them 1 million Kenyan shillings. 5 million is £38,000. Now bear in mind, a teacher earns £60 a month. And the teachers are the better off people in Kenya. I am amazed at how they have raised £38,000 to rebuild this church. I just want to close with some readings. One from Luke and one from 2 Corinthians. And Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he also saw a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. So he said, "Truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these, out of their abundance, have put in offerings for God. But she, out of her poverty, put in all the livelihood that she had." Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. As the story of Ciamanda, Butsbury, Christchurch unfolds, it has become a story about giving. But for me, the story isn't properly told in the fantastic generosity of Christchurch, of Kennedy's, and other people, as generous as those gifts are. And I don't want to underestimate how that giving has changed the lives of the children and the people of Ciamanda. But the greater lesson I have witnessed on giving has come from Ciamanda itself. I have seen how they have sacrificed so much in order to build God's church. It's so important to them to pass on God's church intact to the next generation, that they will give all they have. In Kenya, the word they constantly used, and it embarrassed me quite often because they would say it in front of me, the sacrifice of Christchurch, the sacrifice of Kennedy's. But sacrifice is something that hurts. It must cost you something to give. That was the original idea behind the temple sacrifice. When a lamb was sacrificed, it had to belong to you. It had to be perfect. And you didn't want to give away your best lamb. And that sacrifice, that temple sacrifice, hurt. The people in Ciamanda give until it hurts. That's why the story about the widow's mite is so important for us to remember. The widow gave all the money she had to God. It hurt her, but she gave it willingly. God loves a cheerful giver, and God only wants us to give according to our means and our ability. He doesn't want us to give out of compulsion, because it's not cheerfully giving. The smiles on the faces of those committee members at St Mary Magdalene, Ciamanda, they said it all to me. They feel really blessed because they are building God's church, although it cost them dearly. God has blessed them abundantly, and the floodgates of heaven have opened for them, as we heard in Malachi, because they have dared to step out in faith. They have overcome huge hurdles financially. And logistically, I just do not know how they have accomplished what they have. And yet God has provided for them every step of the way and is building his church in Ciamanda.